Salutations and greetings, one and all. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are here in very frigid Kerrville, Texas, where the temperature is 18 degrees. But I have a little lap warmer right there. There she is, the astrological weather cat, Miss Peachy. She was out looking for her little boxing mate, but I don't think he's going to be outside anytime soon. He's probably all snuggled up and bundled up wherever he is. Pretty cold out here. And last night I came home and my heater was out. And that was kind of problematic, you know. I was like, okay, well, I got some space heaters. I can probably make do. And you know, I have a mini split in this room where I do the show, and I actually cranked it up a bit. So today, when I got out here to serve you lovely people, that I wouldn't be freezing my tuchus off, as they say. And so it was, you know, I'm not an HVAC guy, right? And you can only troubleshoot with grok so much. And I decided must have been about, I don't know, maybe 8:30 at night. I decided to go on Nextdoor. I don't know if you guys know that app, Nextdoor. So I went on Nextdoor, and I found an HVAC guy, and he actually picked up the phone. It's like, well, that's unusual. And he said, "Where do you live?" And I told him. And he said, "I'll be right over." I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect that. Right. I thought, you know, lot of issues with heating units right now. I think I might have some time tomorrow and come out tomorrow. And that wasn't the case at all. He was at my place in about a half an hour. And then, you know, I watched him take apart my Carrier HVAC unit just to see what I could learn. And it's amazing once you pull the cover back how little there is in there. It's a bunch of connections, really. And it's like the guts of the system are probably integrated throughout the rest of the system. And what had happened was I had a main wire completely burn, and it wound up disconnecting itself from the unit. And so what he did is he came in and he clipped the wires and he cleaned them, and he was able to put them back together again, braid them back together, and he did a few other things, and it was like $150, you know. And I was totally psyched. I was like, wow, not only do I have heat, but it didn't cost me an arm and a leg. And I've got him coming out for a maintenance visit in about 3 months, charges $75 and goes in and sort of cleans up your unit. It's like, that is America. Like, that is old school America. And that's not a job that AI or robots are going to be able to come over, at least not in the near future, and get your heating system back up and running. So I really, really appreciate it. And shout out to, I believe his name was Trevor. And Trevor, thank you. You're not watching this, but thank you. Appreciate your rapidity in your service. Okay, let's see what's happening here. We have a cast of characters, and I mean that. Julian Ross, what's going on, Julian? I think we have a thing set up here in the not so distant future. Good to see you. Susan. What's up, Susan? Hope you all are safe. We all are safe. Although it was definitely icy when I got out yesterday. I've been away for a couple of days. And pulled my car in the driveway and I opened my door, and there's this ice patch like right next to my car door, and I'm like, I'm not stepping on that ice patch. So I checked who owns this house, and it's me. So I decided that since I own the house, I could drive my car slightly on the lawn. And when I open the door, I step out on the lawn where there's no ice slippage with my footing. Worked out fine. Presence of mind. It certainly helps. Let's see who else we have here. Charlie, what's going on, Charlie? Perspectivized. Janine, PMSO is here. Lena Winkler, what's up, Lena? Getting coffee. I had mine. Let's see. Renee R. Hello. Jam Chloe. Mark S. One Bill Smith. Testing one Bill Smith. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Oh my gosh, it's cold. My daddy told me when I was young he saw a jackrabbit push another one to get it started. That's a cold day. There you go. I had a Volkswagen Rabbit. Did my fair share of pushing on that. Amy, Ole Kobe, Donna Reed. That's right. Donna Reed is our star of the day. The beautiful Donna Reed. Let's see. Just check the real feel here east of Cleveland. -7. Whoa. You're in the deep freeze zone. You're in the cryogenic zone. Misbehaving 2 is with us. The lovely and talented one. It's snowy and icy here still. Yes, it was when I left. And we have our own version of that here. Yesterday, you could have heard a pin drop in this neighborhood. It was so quiet, eerily quiet. Perspectivized, what's up? Zerolith Immortal. Oh, it's Eternal. Eternal. I like Eternal. Regina. Hi, Regina. We got a Christine Fu sighting. Catherine Rosen. What's up, Catherine? We got hanging laundry. It's warmer today, 14 instead of 5. Barbara Boots, good morning. All very frigid here this morning. Still have to finish shoveling the ice off my driveway. I don't know if you guys know this, but Barbara belongs to a very unique group of people who shovel snow topless. It's kind of like a polar bear club. It's not everybody does it, but I've heard that it really facilitates the shoveling. You get more done quicker. Maya Rose is also here, checking in from sunny Mexico. Josie's Jazzy Junk. Texans are good in a crisis. I always note that. Texans they're the best in a crisis. They get shit done. Mini splits are better coolers than heaters. I understand. Totally. I get it. But here in this room, I'll take whatever heat I can get because it's all glass. Let's see. HVAC guys are awesome. This guy was all business. Rafi, what's up? We got Lisa Ann White. And now our friend, the Centaur Truther. We are buried in snow, almost 3 feet here. I need to get out and clear it again. Not liking this at all. Well, your Patriots are in their Super Bowl. Life is a series of trade-offs, right? Just think about that. Let's see. Who else do we have? Belkel. What's up, Belkel? My guy, Steve. Thor at the door. What's going on, brother? Anthony Ronaldo, weather is great in Nevada. Played golf yesterday. Sorry, we are full. Awesome. That's really awesome. My son and fam are here in Savannah. Everything okay there? Beautiful. Love Savannah. Love Savannah. Cool place. Wisco has been bitter cold Love, I can walk with my land and no ticks. I guess the ticks have an aversion to cold weather. Fuck, I hate ticks. Ticks and mosquitoes, man. I don't know. Other than agents of contagion, I'm not sure what role they play. Uh, let's see. Michael Troy Carson. It's Mike C and CB. What's up, Mike? Howdy back. It is Mozart's birthday. You know, I've done Mozart as the star of the day before. What's really interesting about Mozart is the oppositional relationship he has with Salieri. Really fascinating. Salieri's a Leo, and all of his Leo planets stack up against Mozart's Aquarian planets. And you can see that these guys they're rivals. I love Amadeus. Although I have to say, I'm not totally crazy about Tom Holtz's portrayal of Mozart. I'm not crazy about it. I'm not sure what Milos Forman saw in Tom Holtz, who at that time had just been, I think, coming off of Animal House as one of the stars of Animal House. Now F. Murray Abraham as Salieri. That's a whole other level of actor. You know, and I think Foreman tried to portray Holtz as kind of his Mozart as kind of a goofy fop. And he's an Aquarian, so maybe there's some truth to that. But great movie, interesting astrological juxtaposition, Leo versus Aquarius. Salieri's genius was not in composition, but in revenge. Salieri's genius was being a Machiavellian character. But yeah, I've done Mozart before. Today we're headed towards Donna Reed territory. Shirley, what's up, Shirley? Sharon Lewis is here. What else we have? Radhad Devium. Hello. Looking dashing. Well, it's amazing what a shower and a shave will do. Not true, Robert. That's your fantasy. I love tugging on Barbara a little bit. Let's see. Find what you love. You're at work, listening. All right. Fire ants are the worst. What did we just see? We just saw this movie with Charlton Heston, and it took place in the Amazon, and these fire ants were coming they were on a rampage and just destroying everything in its path. And Heston is one of these Amazonian plantation owners, and he has this mail order bride. I think it's Virginia Mayo, maybe something like that. And she shows up, and Heston finds out that she's been with another man. And he wants to send her back because she doesn't meet his strict qualifications. And this is a man that has carved out everything in the Amazonian wilderness. But along the way, they find out that, guess what? Is it fire ants or army ants? They're just descending. They're eating everything in their path. And it's Charlton Heston versus the army ants. And he loses everything. He retains the structure of his plantation, but he loses everything because he has to blow up this dam and these locks and flood all of his orchards and cacao and everything. It's just all underwater. But he manages to kill the ants, right? So it's a metaphor for him losing his entire world, but finding this woman whom he had rejected outright because she didn't meet his criterion. But as the situation arose, she became this woman of courage and character and stood by his side. So he lost everything, but he gained love. gained love. And in that regard, the fire ants were the army ants, whatever they were not friendly. They devoured everything. They were the ones that delivered him to a higher level of appreciation for a woman in his life. And the meek shall inherit the earth. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Sarah E. Caleb, what's going on? Happy Pluto Mars Day. Yeah, that's right. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Agree on Amadeus actor portrayal a goof. I mean, you have all these heavyweight people, and you cast Tom Hulse, who really didn't go on to do very much after that. I think he did a movie called, what was it? Griffith Park or Echo Park or something like that. And he just became a fringe actor. So many great choices, and loved the movie. Kind of ruined it for me. Let's see. Peony Rosa from NZ. What's going on, Peony Rosa? That's funny about your cat hanging, looking like a bus passenger. What color was your dad's 65 Impala? There weren't many color options back then in 1965. There just weren't. And so we got the most basic color, which was white. Looking back on it, you might be able to get a black one. I don't know. Maybe if you were feeling racy and wanted all the upgrades, you could get red with red leather. It was white. But he was right for the role. I don't know. I don't think so. But I'm not going to get caught up in a movie and an actor that's more than 30 years old. The Maroon Monster. There you go. Maroon. Dated a guy who had a very light sky blue one. My dad had literally blue same year. Yeah, I think you could find a blue one. I think white was probably the cheapest. And Scrubby, what's going on? Walking the dog. Look at that. She's of hearty stock, isn't she? And we have Lori Ann from Minnesota. Hi, Lori Ann from Minnesota. How you doing up there? You got some Kevlar? You got a Kevlar vest. We're going to be talking about ice in Minneapolis over on Rumble today. The link is inside of the show notes if you want to come join us. Okay. Shall we get on with the weather? Shall we weather up? The temperature is hot in the city, but we're getting along as best as we can. Minnesotans are made of tough stuff, let me tell you. Tough stuff. Today's chart is really interesting. Today's chart brought to you by the God of the Multiverse, providing you with planetary action and fun since the beginning of time. Check out God in the Multiverse by looking up into the heavens, where you can develop a personal relationship through the knowledge of your chart. How about that? About them apples. Okay, Trinity Productions. What's up, Trinity? All right, here we go. We got the screen share. I mean, this is a really, if I had a whoever's being born today, let's just today would be an interesting day. Michael Apted did these movies. They were like 7 Up, and he started with these kids when they were 7 years old in the UK, mostly England. I think he might have dipped into the Scottish Bowl, but I think it was England. And he followed these kids at 7, and he followed them at 14, and he followed them at 21, and he followed them at 28. And I think he followed them again at 35 and 42. I mean, this is really one of the most ambitious kinds of projects that spans a couple decades. And it's fascinating watching these kids grow up and get older and seeing where their young personalities take them and evolve. Really fascinating. And today would be one of those days where I would love to follow children born on this day. Book it, 27 January 2026. Because this is a very unique chart. Very unique. Let's make it a little bit bigger, shall we? Okay, so we have Mars-Pluto conjunction. And people will bring up the Cassini factor. That sounds like a 1970s Dino De Laurentiis movie. The Cassini factor, starring Burt Lancaster and Sophia Loren. Kind of all slightly over the hill with O.J. Simpson. So we have, let's get into this a little bit. I am not 100% on board with Cassini. I get it. How could you not be on board with it? I feel like it's one. So I used to have this client and friend. I haven't talked to her in a long time. She has one of the most complicated charts I've ever seen in my life. I mean, complicated. Born in 1974, and all Libra except for Mercury. So we have Uranus, Pluto, Sun, Venus, Mars, Saturn, all in Libra. And all within 4 degrees of each other, and all in the 9th house, with Mercury in Scorpio, just kind of slightly outside of the conjunctions. And reading for somebody like that is really difficult because all the planets, all the energies are entangled. And you throw in like Uranus, which is just a wild card. And I remember when Saturn was crossing her 9th house. Was she going through her Saturn return then? 74, 84, 94, 2004. No, I don't think she had Saturn in Libra. I think it was somewhere else in the chart. So she wasn't going through a Saturn return, but she had all those aforementioned planets, Venus, Mars conjunction, Pluto, Uranus, Sun, all within 4 degrees of each other. And watching Saturn just kind of mow through those planets in real time was fascinating, because all this good work that she had done was being squandered. And I love this person to death, but she was a PR person. And what happened was that she started to get jealous of the people that she was doing PR for. And she was doing PR for like these, quote unquote, spiritual people. And she wanted to be those people. Where she was a great PR person. She was really great, but she wasn't content with that. She wanted to be in front of the camera versus behind the camera. And so when Saturn came in and started to conjunct all of her Libra planets, it sent everything haywire, right? And she was already a complex person to begin with. So when we have these stelliums and they're separated by 2-3 degrees, some of which they're right on top of each other, going in and it's kind of like and I use this analogy when I was driving one time in outside of Calistoga, and it was raining. It was a slight drizzly rain, and it's only one highway, and it's like the wine highway. And I didn't have a radio in my vehicle because it would only get stolen where I was living anyway. So I would bring like this boom box, this little boom box, and I'd play the radio, or if I had some CDs, I'd play a CD, whatever. It wasn't that big of a deal. And I was on this highway, and I went to change the channel on the radio, and I looked up, and the car ahead of me had decided it was going to hit its brakes. And I'll tell you why, because they wanted to make this turn and go to this winery. And it wasn't like everybody else was. I mean, it was kind of crowded and sort of bumper to bumpery, but we were moving, and they put on their brakes because they wanted to make this turn. And so I look up and I see they put on their brakes, and I hit my brakes and I turn my wheel. And this is, kind of a first rain. The roads are slick, so I slide, right? And my left light in the front end of my little Toyota wagon hits their car. Nothing happens to them. However, because of the rain and because of the kind of the exposed wiring from the light, which kind of cut the wires a little bit, I had water getting into the wires. And what happened was that these wires melded together. So I've told this story before. If you're new, you get to hear it again for the first time. So I turned my wipers on, and my horn would honk. It was really fucked up, right? Really fucked up. Everything was just confused in the wiring. So that week, I got my car back to my house. I popped open the hood, and I had to go in and literally pull apart these melted wires and then figure out where they connected, and then use electrical tape to twine them together. And then once that happened, everything functioned and worked the way it was supposed to do, except for the front light, of course, which eventually I had to replace. But that's what it was like with all these planets. You have to go in and you literally have to sort through them and kind of reestablish the connection, all these influences. And we're not quite there today, but we're really close. I mean, if we're looking at Mars, Pluto, and the fusion of the two of them, right? This is a really interesting aspect. Now, the Kazemi people will tell you Pluto cancels Mars. So this Marshall effect of Mars and Capricorn, we'll transpose it. Let's say this Mars and Capricorn has to do with Minnesota and ice. And all of a sudden, Trump hits a wall, has a conversation with Tim Walz, which apparently he did. And they come to some kind of an agreement, and Chuck Grassley and Thune and Jacob Frey are all very happy, right? That they realized that they came to this realization or conclusion that Trump was going to withdraw ICE. I mean, so that's Mars, right? That would be Mars, and Pluto would be nullifying Mars. in some way, right? And Pluto still, even if it's in Aquarius, has to do with power and control. And when I think of something like Minneapolis, I think of it now. Minneapolis, Minnesota is, believe I'm not mistaken, a Cancerian state with a Virgo rising. I'm pretty certain about that. So introducing Pluto in Aquarius into the conversation for Minneapolis, you'd have to, or Minnesota, you would move Pluto literally into roughly the eighth house of Minnesota, where we're talking about things like corruption, money sort of being dispersed behind the scenes, and it seems like Minnesota has become like and I think a lot of it has to do with the ethnic makeup of Minnesota, and that there's a lot of Swedes, a lot of people from the northern parts of Europe who naturally settled there because it's not too unlike the place that they came from. And as a result of that, those people have a very different kind of temperament in general, right? Very different temperament in general. And they tend to be a bit more aloof, and which is fine. I mean, nobody says you have to be buddy with everybody, but they tend to be a bit more aloof, a bit more cool. And it's just the nature of who they are. And then when you but let me just bring this back a little bit. But there does seem to be a propensity, and maybe it has to do with the religious roots of those people. And you can see what happened in places like Sweden and to a lesser extent Norway, but it's there. Sweden, Holland, Norway, to some extent Finland, but we use the Swedes and the Dutch and the Norwegians as kind of a test case. And what happened in Europe is they, and particularly Sweden, is that they traded in their native religion, their native form of Christianity. They traded it in for a type of secular socialism, but still retaining their Christian values in some ways, which were charity and compassion and friendliness and being neighborly, which allowed for this onslaught of non-Swedes to populate Sweden. And Minnesota is kind of similar in some ways. Like, I don't think that it's too far of a bridge here with connecting Minnesota with Sweden in terms of what happened with the quote unquote new people and the infusion of the new people. I just think it's fascinating that, Somalia winds up in, this area that's kind of subarctic. Maybe if they were in a warmer climate, they might be slightly more, I don't know, integrative. There's a nice word, integrative. But bringing this back, like Aquarius is cold. It's cold. And I'm not saying Aquarian people are cold. Really nice people, good people, right? There's a lot of you in the chat. I adore and appreciate you. But when you get out to Capricorn and Aquarius here in the Northern Hemisphere, these are the two coldest months of the year. And sometimes meteorologically cold also reflects in astrologically cold and even culturally cold. It's the way it is, right? You ever been around a cold Leo? Not many times, right? Leos are, they can be combative and they can be tempestuous, but cold they are not, right? And again, it has a lot to do with the time of year that I think you're born as it relates to the zodiac. And so we have this Pluto, this freeze, right? This Pluto in Aquarius, which is, you had all these planets either in Aquarius or Capricorn. So whether it's man-made or whether it's natural and man-made, piggybacking on the weather system, we were bound for this cold snap. We were bound to have it. But as this relates to like what's going on in Minneapolis with Pluto and Mars, it's like who's going to come out on top, right? What is this social situation going to portend for the future? Because we had deaths, right? I mean, it's another Mars-Pluto conjunction. I mean, theoretically, you had pretty and good, and together they're pretty good. Although, I don't think that they necessarily planned it that way, but that's the way it comes out, right? And I think Minneapolis is kind of a test case with what happens moving forward, especially with Mars. And Mars is getting ready to just move past Pluto. And it feels to me very much like we were within a cat's whisker of martial law and quite possibly the Insurrection Act. Now, do I think these protests are going to abate? I don't know. If ICE leaves Minneapolis, maybe. But one of the things I'm going to talk about today is, and I don't often agree with Matt Walsh, but I do agree with him in this regard, that if the government, which would be we the people theoretically, does not remove people who have been ripping off the system. And what's really interesting? Let me just have a little bit of a pause here on that. The Trump administration is really big on removing criminals, right? Oh, if they're criminals, they're gone. They're gone. So what constitutes a criminal? Is it violating another human being, whether it's perpetrating violence or absconding with their personal goods and violating their personal rights? Is that what constitutes a criminal? Or is a criminal constituted by the fact that they're stealing shit? They're stealing money from the federal government. Well, if that's the case, then you can certainly expand the definition of criminal. And it's not just Somalis who are in on the take, but a lot of white-collar criminals who, if that's the case, should suffer the same scrutiny. In the Somalis case, deportation, and maybe they deport them to max security prison. But the standards are the standards, at least put forth by the Trump administration, which I won't get into. And it's Matt Walsh's contention that if they don't follow through in this mission and really deport the bad characters, that this is a loss for the Trump administration. And I feel like if we're looking at this Mars-Pluto conjunction and we're trying to apply some reasoning to it, it's like, will Pluto snuff out the fire of Mars? And this action, which really began with Mars and Capricorn, it was really, born out of this Mars and Capricorn transit. And is this going to be a win for Tim Walz and Keith Ellison and Jacob Frey? Is that what's going to happen? We won't fully know until Mars comes through Pluto, which it hasn't yet. And we won't even really fully know completely until Juno actually goes through Pluto. Remember, Juno was the final piece of all the Capricorn planets here. What's fascinating, we can see how fast in some ways the asteroids move. Pallas is now in Pisces. So I would see this as a heightened sense of psychic awareness for people. That's how I would look at this. And, because Pallas is all about pattern recognition. And this is pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to kind of reverie, unusual, I wouldn't say unusual thoughts, because I think we all have unusual thoughts, but more along the lines of feeling like you can't shake something, like something is coming. I had a friend of the show call me yesterday with that very same feeling, and listened, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and listened to them go through what their internal process was, and believing that this latest whatever. Let me just say this too. Let me just kind of clarify this. It's very hard for us to fully understand what's happening in a place like Minnesota/Minneapolis, because there are lots of bad actors and plants that are on both sides of the so-called conflict. You have agents provocateurs who are on the Antifa side, or whatever you want to call them. And then on the law and order side, or the enforcement side, and I've gone over this in fairly granular detail, that the IDF is embedded. There's at least 125, perhaps more, IDF soldiers who are embedded in ICE, not to mention the fact that ICE receives training from the IDF. So they're really going into a place like Minneapolis, like it's Gaza. And you have to wonder, if that results in deaths, and even if those deaths are real, and if they are real, then the stories behind the people most certainly are not. Once you dig into Renee Good, you just realize that this is somebody who is a professional agitator, and a lifelong kind of life fuck up, right? And the system, or the downgraded version of the system, supports people like that. And they do. So we have to take all this with a bit of a grain of salt. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I don't get too emotionally wound up about it. And for me, it's nice that Trump is finally getting off the pot and, exerting some force. But it's like, it's too late in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? It's too late. Like, this should have been happening in 2024. 2020. Shit, 2020. Summer of Floyd. That's 6 years ago. 6 years ago. And did they infiltrate the networks and break the networks down and break them apart? I don't have the answer to that. But if I had to make an educated guess, I would say no. Absolutely not. And this is me, and sometimes I can be accused of being semi-fascist, but I would have made just absolutely brutal examples of those people back in 2020. It didn't happen. It was like, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that the majority of the protesters were so-called Black protesters. So in a lot of ways, they were given a hall pass, whether it's because it was Black Lives Matter, or this kind of institutional feeling that we fuck Black people over, so go ahead and let them destroy them some stuff, and it's okay. We'll take the L, and we'll put up some nice statues and make them feel better after they've torn those down. whatever they did or didn't do, it didn't really work because they're back again. They're back again. And I don't, certainly those 4 years of Biden, those sleeper cells are just going to, kind of stay as they are. There was nobody contesting them. Um, I would say overall today is a day of good flow. The only hard angle we have is Chiron in Jupiter square, and I don't even think that's that bad of a square. It's certainly Jupiter is trying to humanize Chiron and Aries, and don't it's for me this Jupiter retrograde in Cancer is all about nostalgia and looking back. And with Chiron and Aries, there's something about the past that is valuable. But here's the tricky part. Jupiter Cancer retrograde, there is a tremendous potential for people to look back, especially with this square with Chiron, to look back on the things that they've done and judge them accordingly, and not always in a positive way. Oh, if I'd only kept my comic books. Oh, if I'd only bought all those cheap ass GI Joe toys back in the day, I could get $300 for this action figure that cost $299. Right? I mean, that's the one downside with this Jupiter retrograde, because you can look back and you can see things that you did or didn't do in somewhat negative light. You know what? That might be true. But then what do you do with it? You have to let go. I mean, that's why people are going nuts about Pokemon and all that shit. What they're doing is they're saying, "Oh, these are going to be valuable in the future. I got to get this now." It's the same psychology. Don't get too hung up on what you did or didn't do, because there's a lot of really great energy here to move forward with. Neptune is now in Aries. It's finally moved off the opposition of my sun. I mean, by degree, it's still kind of there, but the energy is different. Right? The energy is different. And people, even though we're in the midst of this great cold snap, I think people are really desiring some new wrinkle with the overall energy. Like the Saturn-Neptune conjunction has been agonizing in a lot of ways, because we know that this old world is coming to an end, and Saturn is just the last kind of holdout. And I think people are more than ready and welcome for something new. And be careful what you ask for, because I think you'll get it, and you may not like it, and you'll look back on Saturn and Neptune and Pisces and go, "Oh boy, those were the good old days. Those were when we were complaining and lamenting over the fact that we're stuck here and it doesn't feel like we can move forward or move backwards." Well, things will move forward. They'll move forward pretty quickly, and I would think in ways in which most people will be shocked and alarmed. That doesn't mean that there isn't value for the individual here. There is, but from a societal level and a collective level, this is hammer time. Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries. Moon Uranus conjunction. I think your emotions should be at the very least playful, quizzical, fun. If you're looking to sell a house, Moon Uranus conjunction brings you new energy, new insights, new things that you can do for your property. Nobody's going to buy during the cold snap, but generating ideas about what you can do and writing them down, it's a good time to do that. All right, we've got about 10 minutes left. Let's do our True Hemp Science star of the day. And let me get the banner here. There you go. All right. So your True Hemp Science star of the day is Donna Reed. Look at Donna Reed. Look how pretty she is. Uh, let's talk a little True Hemp Science. It's your one-stop shop for all things CBD, whether it's the sleep gummies, whether it's the daytime gummies, whether it's the elixirs like Lumina, which are really great for getting inside your cells and giving you sort of that cellular lubricant that resets your body and your mind and your spirit. CBD is your friend. Check out Pet Sounds, which is a really good formula for your pets in general. And there's all kinds of other applications there. There's topical CBD. Chris has some other elixirs that are outside the CBD world. Check it out. First time buyers, 20% off. And if you type in 15MINS, you will get the goodie bag on top of your order when you spend $100 or more. That means you get some extra product on top of the already discounted product. And if you search around a little bit, you'll find some sales stuff on there as well. So TrueHempScience.com, longtime sponsor of the show, and a really great business to invest in for your body, your mind, and your spirit. Okay, let's talk Donna Reed. I tend to look at things culturally and the role that we kind of know Donna Reed best as. First of all, she was born in Denison, Iowa, and I feel like her ninth house plays a really big role in her life because she moves. She won some, typical kind of beauty pageant stuff, and she decides that she's going to go to Los Angeles. And so she goes to Los Angeles, and I think it might have been like in the 30s. And I think she's kind of going to school, but also auditioning for movies. And that's a very ninth house kind of move, isn't it? I mean, going from Denison, Iowa to Hollywood is the equivalent of interplanetary space travel back then. I mean, very different kind of world. And in that regard, I feel like, with all those planets on her ninth house, she's pretty fearless. She's going to break the mold. She's not going to, marry a farmer or an insurance agent or, a newspaper publisher or a typesetter or whatever in Iowa. That's just not who Donna Reed is. There's a bigger world out there for her to explore. And, that's clearly in her ninth house. She's Gemini rising, and she died fairly young. I mean, she died in her 60s, and I think she had pancreatic cancer. And so she still looked really good in her 60s, and she was doing Dallas and, some TV shows. I mean, this is what all the older stars do. They show up on Love Boat and shit like that. So she'd found a role later in life and retained her looks, which was good. But when I think about her and I think about the chart, I think about Venus and Mars in the 10th house, and I also think about Moon, Saturn, Jupiter in the 4th house. And I know that these have personal connotations for Donna Reed, like how she grew up, the presence of the father, the mother, even though Saturn and Jupiter are retrograde in her chart, which I think kind of catapults her to the 10th house, by the way. I feel like she had pretty good upbringing, a pretty decent upbringing, especially with the moon in Libra, kind of at the end of the 4th house being the 5th. And I feel like, she just probably outgrew her surroundings. And she has these interesting conjunctions with Saturn and Jupiter and Venus and Mars. Those are unusual. The Mercury-Sun conjunction is not too unusual. But for me, of course, she plays Jimmy Stewart's wife in It's a Wonderful Life. and it's kind of a breakthrough role for her. And I think she was in maybe 40 movies. And you think that's a lot, but some of these actresses would do, you know, between 3 to 5 movies a year, right? And if they've got a 20-year career, they're up to about 50, 60 movies, maybe more. So she was kind of on the moderate side, but there was a good portion of her life, I think it might have been 8 years, where she played the maternal figure on the Donna Reed show. And I feel like that this is an important show that gives us some exposition in her chart. Because when you look at Venus, it's slightly ahead of Mars, right? And it's in the 10th house. And even with Uranus here, it's like she's going to do something that's very different. It's not called the Carl Betts show, right? Carl Betts was her husband. And I forget what their family name was, but it wasn't like, Ozzie and Harriet Nelson or fill in the blank of whatever family show. It was the Donna Reed show. Donna Reed is the star, and she is the focal point for most of the narrative. And you could see this with Venus ahead of Mars slightly, and also the moon ahead of Saturn, where the feminine overtakes the masculine. And I posit this, that the Donna Reed show is the first show on television that plays with this idea of the importance of gender being switched from patriarchy to matriarchy. And she does it in a way where you can kind of stomach it. Because number one, she's beautiful. Number two, she's level-headed. She's like the mom everybody wants, right? She's always comes up with the right answers. And, even though she may have some difficult children, she's able to navigate them through some of the complexities of their life. And Carl Betts is there with his pipe, and he plays the father and chimes in but it's Donna Reed, right? And I would say that Donna Reed really is the first kind of feminist icon in television. And I think it's intentional, and I think it's in her chart. Venus is in front of Mars. The feminine is ahead of the masculine. The moon in the 4th house, right? Almost 5th. Even though Saturn and Virgo would be feminine, I still think of Saturn as being a very masculine planet. And so you have the feminine, even though Libra's an air sign. I feel like, again, this transposition. And I think she was married 3 times. Her second marriage was the longest. I think it lasted over 20 years. And I think for Hollywood, that's a pretty good number, right? But I think for Donna Reed, her life is defined by her work in a lot of ways. Like I said, even though she had 40 films, what do we know her for, really? It's the Donna Reed show. And even with Uranus in her 10th house, it's like it's a break, right? Professionally, she brings a different, like she's not June Cleaver. That family the hierarchy was Ward and then June. But that's not the hierarchy on the Donna Reed show. The hierarchy is Donna Reed, Carl Betts. And you may think it's a trifle, but it's not. It's a major shift in this kind of rising tide of what I would call feminine power. I mean, she's got the show named after her, for crying out loud, right? And what's interesting about her is that even and this starts to bleed into other shows after that. I would say most notably, even though it's at the other end of the spectrum, the TV show Hazel, where you have this fucking maid who's running the household. It's not even a woman, not just a woman, it's a working class woman. right? And she's smarter and has much more common sense than Mr. B, who supposedly, it's the beginning when you see Donna Reed. Her and Carl Betts are on slightly equal footing, although I would say Carl Betts is more of the, I would call him the straight man, but he's playing second fiddle to Donna Reed. And this is a she's an icon for major cultural shift, which is beamed into America's homes every night, right? And we see the characters and the family of Donna Reed grow up over those years as well. And she's, wholly consistent, right? And in that regard, I feel like you can really see her chart. You can totally see her chart. And it all started when she decided to leave quaint little Denison, Iowa, where she was a Miss, I don't know, Denison Corn Festival winner, to go to Hollywood, and the crazy potential of all that Uranian energy in the night. She's got a moon sunshine, which is not a common aspect, by the way. And she's got the moon in Libra, so it's going to really accentuate her beauty, her grace. I mean, she kind of exudes a lot of very Libran qualities there. So there you go. There's your True Hemp Science Star of the Day, Donna Reed. Donna Reed. And I'll go on the record that she is the first proto-feminist figure on television. And it plays out in her chart, 10th house. Venus-Mars conjunction. They're together, but Venus is slightly more ahead of Mars. And she's Venus, and Carl Betts is Mars. And there you go. Your True Hemp Science Star of the Day, Donna Reed. All right, if you would like a reading, someone from read to reading, that link is available on the notes. And I've been very busy, and I'm continuing to get back to people. The beginning of the year with a special. I'm about 3 weeks out with readings. So if you don't want to be 5 or 6 weeks out, get on board. Special's over, but you're special. I'm special. We can be special together. All right. Take good care, everybody. Stay warm out there. God bless. Love you all. Bye for now.